if you buy a new car today, you're faced with glass screens, mega consoles, software updates over the air, pay for heated seats, pay for better headlights, paying for pretty much everything, all software enabled. But when this car was built in 2015, the original owner chose their spec, Porsche built it, and that was pretty much that. You couldn't change anything. And yet here we are 10 years later, more or less. There are still a few options in the ECU that we can tweak. Nothing major, but they are there. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that using PIWIS, and what I'm going to change to personalise my Boxster GTS, make it a little bit more special for me. So if you want to find out more about what I'm going to do, hang around. Welcome to Project 901 and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you bought a car today new, a lot of the features your car will have are coded into the software. These days cars are much more about the software and the coding that they come with than they are about the physical hardware and the features. But when this car, the 981 Boxster, was designed only 2010 and introduced in 2012, we didn't have connected cars or over-the-air updates, and if you wanted a feature or an option in your car, you spec'd it from new and it was built into the car when it went down the line in the factory. And by and large that's true for this car, but Porsche have always been very clever at sharing bits and parts and features across their models. So this car, common to the Cayman 981 and the in-period 991, 911. Porsche thought, right, hang on, there's going to be some common features and options in those cars, and we might as well share the coding, the software for those, between those three models when they're built. So whilst this car barely has a touchscreen, what it does have is some bits and pieces in the ECU that are effectively software features that we might want to enable if it's appropriate for this car. So my car's got a relatively meagre spec. It had a few paid for options added to the base GTS spec, but it's missing a couple of things. For example, the auto wipers, the rain sensing wipers. And there's one or two other little bits and pieces that we now know 10 years or so into this car's lifetime, the 981's lifetime, that other bits and pieces are available inside the car. And plenty of owners have figured this out for themselves with the help of their local indies and enable those things. So that's what this video is about. It's a little bit of a follow-up to an earlier video I made called Porsche's Free Lunch, in which I actually managed to successfully change the power steering map, add the torque vectoring feature, the cross-axle, rear-axle torque vectoring feature, but failed to enable the auto wipers, because while the physical sensor is in this car, it's actually up just behind the rear view mirror, I couldn't find the details in the PIWIS system. So I'm back today to High Performance in Suffolk, and we're going to plug their PIWIS system back in. I've done a little bit more research on the forums in conversation with fellow Boxster and Cayman owners, and I'm pretty certain I know what's now necessary. So I'm going to have another crack at getting the wipers enabled. There's also a setting for the wipers that allow you to toggle the auto sensor off and on. So not just physically be able to turn the wipers on, but actually in the little computer screen here, I think it's mirrored in the PCM, a toggle, so you can go to normal intermittent, which you set manually, or you can have the auto feature. So I'm going to try and find that. There's also a feature which is quite commonly done by enthusiasts to change the parameters for the display for the coolant temperature as it comes up in the vehicle menu in the combi screen here, because by and large Porsche have set this up so it never gets above 90 degrees centigrade for the centigrade value. There'll be a Fahrenheit equivalent for that, which is a bit of a false reading. So once it gets to that, it just sort of sits there, and you can modify the parameters so it actually shows the correct coolant water temperature for the engine. So that's a mod too, and there's one or two other things I'm going to have a look at. So basically today's video is all about getting the car plugged into PIWIS and seeing if we can code enable some of those sort of software features, if you will, the software settings that will just make this car a little bit more personal to me and tailor it in the way that I want my car to be. Now, some owners have, for example, enabled the preserve setting feature for the buttons down here, the auto start stop. A lot of owners don't like that setting being active, the auto start stop being active when they turn the car on, and you can therefore enable with a little toggle in the software a preserve previous setting feature. So if you turn it off, it'll preserve that when you start the car again. There's the ability to change the road speed values at which the rear spoiler automatically deploys and the different heights it deploys to, and then the speed at which it sits itself back down. So that's all variable and can be configured. So there's lots of things you can do. There's a whole expert menu that you can add on to the combi screen here on the dashboard, which reveals more data from more of the sensors that exist on the car, and the car monitors as a matter of course, but we don't get to see. So as I say, lots of features, displays, options, parameters that are built into the common ECUs for the 981 generation Boxster Cayman and the 991, the in-period equivalent 911, and possibly also some of these things popping up in the early Panameras and Macans too. So we'll get over to Pi, we'll plug PIWIS in, we'll get my notes out, and we'll see what progress we can make. Now, as a brief aside, we banged around this word PIWIS quite a lot. I have in this video and previous videos. What does it actually mean? Well, what it actually is, for all intents and purposes, is a laptop computer with some bespoke software from Porsche. And the OPCs, that's what we call the Porsche centres in the UK, official Porsche centre. I think the title is different in the US and in Europe. But anyway, your Porsche main dealer will have that system, and that's how they plug in and run the car and code it and change the service intervals, all that fun stuff. And when you get a light on the dashboard, that's what they use to diagnose it. You can buy aftermarket ones, and the different versions are numbered one. Well, I think there must be a 1, but certainly 2 is the first one that became available aftermarket. 3 is far more common, and 4 is now a thing, which I think was introduced alongside the first EV, so the Taycan. Most specialists will have 3, and certainly the guys at Pi Performance have 3. And you can buy, as I say, you can buy a laptop with a virtual machine running on it, or you can buy one of the, I think they're sort of semi-official laptops with the original PIWIS software. PIWIS, I think, stands for Porsche Integrated Workshop Information System. They love an acronym, so we all call it PIWIS, Porsche Integrated Workshop Information System, better known as the laptop. And that's lots of fun and games to be had with that. Just for clarity, I don't plan to make these changes regularly. If they work, they become a permanent feature of my car. So I don't feel the need to go and buy an aftermarket PIWIS system. We've got some really friendly specialists that I'm able to go and see. They've got the kit to make the change once, and that's all good. PIWIS, unsurprisingly, is quite a powerful bit of software, and you can really muck your car up if you muck up the settings, do the wrong thing. So my advice generally would be, if you want to make 1 or 2 changes, as I am, go and find a specialist to help you. If you are keen to get into the system more and you fancy doing more of the mods yourself, do go ahead, but be super careful, because you can really muck your car up. And some of the menus, in particular the engineering or development mode, is all in German, so you can quite quickly get quite a lot lost in the menus, and it all might end up being a bit teary. So, fun to do, but just a word of caution, be careful if you get into a deep dive. And with that said, I'm going to go and get the specialist to do mine. So here we are, we've arrived at High Performance just after 9, and there's lots of lovely cars tucked away because it's the winter. Not always all about Porsches, little 458 there. And I've reversed the GTS in, and Bradley is just plugging in the PIWIS system. We've got a plan of action, got my instructions. So what happens is you basically have a sophisticated switch which goes into the OBDCO-CDBC thing, whatever that's called in there, and that connects to the back of the laptop, which is that. And then we variously work our way through the options. We're going to start in the engineering mode and see if we can get the GT3 map up. So Bradley and I did indeed start with the steering maps for the power steering and coding the puddle lights in the doors. Now I've made separate videos on both of those, power steering and puddle lights, do check them out. Then it was time to find the setting for the auto sensor for the wipers, the windscreen wipers, and enabling that. And then diving into the combi instrument, which is what Porsche calls the dashboard computer, to find the menu item which allows you to toggle between automatic and manual for that sensor for the wipers. And finally was back into the combi instrument module to modify the values that the computer uses to display the coolant or the water temperature, again on that display in front of you. So we've done the wipers and we're now writing all those new settings to the car, and it just goes through and sets all the values, and you can see that the lots of things come up on the screen and it thinks all the options it has got, haven't got, and what have you. And there's a progress bar on the menu which we can see. So far we've had success. We've got the auto wipers enabled, we've got the menu item for that done, and we've done the coolant temperature values, which you probably won't be able to see until we drive the car. So far so good. So we are almost done. So what do you need to know? Right, the coolant temperature setting, that is available. Settings. Oh, well, that's should now be, so where the 65 is, we'll see what the values of that when the car is running. Just need to check the voltage comes up when I start the car. Otherwise we go into settings, and there's lighting and visual light and visibility, and then we've got, there it is, the wiper menu. Select that, and we've got rain sensor. We can toggle between automatic and manual, and the rain sensor having been enabled up on the top. We had a little play with it earlier and it was going back and forth quite happily, so job's a good one, so that's really good. And with that done and everything else on my list ticked off, it was time to head home. Okay, so a really good morning at High Performance, lots of help from Bradley and some curveballs, but we've figured them all out. Now I've just left there, we're a couple of minutes down the road back in Lavenham, just quickly parked up just to talk to camera. And what have we managed to achieve? We've got auto wipers enabled, we've got the menu item for wipers enabled, and we've also got, and I can see it right in front of me, the modified values for the coolant temperature showing in the combi display, the combi instrument display. So my water temperature, the coolant temperature I can now see is 96 degrees centigrade, which you'd never got that high before. It's actually the same temperature, it's just showing me the correct value. And it's just creeping up because we're sat here with the engine running 97 now, so that's great. We've got that enabled, and as I flick through here into the vehicle menu, into settings, down to light and visibility, and I'll drop a static photo in about now, you can see we've now got the wiper option. If I go into wiper, I can now see rain sensor, which has been enabled, and I can toggle between the rain sensor working automatically if I lift the lever up by one click, or I can turn it off and have manual, which is to say the manually set intermittent values on the intermittent wipers without activating the rain sensor. So that's fantastic, really chuffed with that. Let's drive home. I'm going to drive home and talk about my steering map, EPS steering map. Check out the other video for that. Quick spoiler, updated to a different steering map, looking forward to that as well. And I've also successfully coded, and we had a little bit of a curveball with bulbs, but I've got my door puddle lights, the safety lights, they are now working. Check out that video separately too. Really chuffed with that, and I'll explain what went on there. I really thought I was stuffed for a moment, but we worked it out. Chuffed with that. So let's drive home. Let's look at our temperatures. Let's look at our steering map and generally enjoy a little December drive out in the sunshine in the Porsche Boxster. So I've been driving now for about 10 minutes, and worth saying that my coolant temperature, my water temperature, is back down to 84. And funnily enough, because the car's moving through the air and we've got some radiators, they're doing their job. And we've dropped 20 degrees of temperature just by virtue of driving the car. So it doesn't just say 90 the whole time now. It didn't really matter before, but it's just nice to see and to learn and understand how the let's say the thermodynamics of the engine change with momentum and airspeed. So the car moving through the air, whether the radiators are working. I mean, you know, you'd spot whether you probably had lost a radiator because the temperature goes through the roof and you can see it, which is exactly why I wanted to make this change. It doesn't help in any other way other than to know what's actually happening. So pleased with that. Oil temperature 91, oil pressure 37 psi. I like psi rather than bar. My voltage 14.6. I've got my display set up. I'm really happy with that. So if you're enjoying this video, now will be a great time to give me a thumbs up or a like. Thank you very much. And if you want to see more of this, by all means check out the other videos on my channel and consider subscribing, because there's plenty more to come. So part way through my journey home, just pulled over. Bit of reflection on the old screen, which is not ideal, but hang on. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. There is the newly enabled screen showing a coolant temperature, which is say the top line, very definitely more than 90 degrees centigrade. So that those X, Y coding changes have definitely worked. Really pleased to see that. And since we're here, let's just show you the go down to settings, go down to light and visibility. There's the wiper menu, there's the rain sensor, and if we go into that, we've got the option now, as you can see, to use the rain sensor, which is to say automatic, or to go for manual. There it is, I left it in automatic, and what automatic means is that when you come out of that, that when you tip the stalk up from the neutral off position to INT intermittent, that is auto wiper rather than the manual. So rain sensor enabled, automatic wipers, one click up, rain sensor disabled, intermittent wiper, one click up, and then you can adjust using the side toggle the frequency of the intermittency. So happy with that. That's been a good morning of coding. Right, so we're back at base. Now I've shown you the menu options on the screen, and we've definitely enabled the sensor, but I thought it was worth just having a quick proof of concept, if you will. So wiper blades up just for prudence. I'm going to just check we've got auto enabled. Into the wiper menu, rain sensor automatic is there, that's fine. So this should now work simply by covering this up, and it does. And effectively what we're doing, if I introduce a bit of water, because the sensor's up in here, let's create some rain. And that should now carry on doing its thing. If I put a bit more rain on, it carries on working. And then of course, what we would then expect to happen is if I dry the windscreen, it will figure out that it stopped raining. There's the last wipe. That should now be it. And lo and behold, the auto wipers have automatically stopped working. So happy with that, definitely works, good job. So at this point in the video, I'm anticipating one or two questions in the comments. So I thought I'd pull together a single slide with the different options that I'm aware you can change on your 981 using PIWIS. And if you've got this far, thank you very much. You won't need me to explain the auto rain sensor and the rain sensor menu in the combi instrument. If you want to have auto start stop turned off when you start your car, that's the toggle for last mode. It's possible to change the speed at which the rear spoiler goes up and then goes down, and the incremental height whilst it's activated. If you've watched my Porsche free lunch video, you'll know it's possible to enable the Porsche torque vectoring feature, although, funnily enough, that won't install a limited slip differential in your car. Buried deep within the combi instrument is also an expert menu which shows live values and parameters while the car is running, although be aware that menu is all in German. We've covered the coolant temperature values in this video. Hopefully that's all self-explanatory. Many drivers who've got coloured, which is to say the red or the yellow instrument faces for their tacho and speedo, find it useful to have the daylight illumination turned on the whole time. I think that adds a little bit of extra contrast. I've also covered EPS steering maps extensively in my Porsche free lunch video and in the power steering video, so do go and check that out. And finally, if you've actually added physically puddle lights or indeed the rear camera, you will need to dive into PIWIS and the options to enable, which is to say, tell the car to recognise and power those up when you've got them physically installed. I haven't included specific instructions in this video for how to do all these changes, but it's all out there on the forums, and if you've got PIWIS, you'll be familiar with how it works. If you've got a specialist who's able to support you with PIWIS, then they'll know the basics, and your own research will then be able to guide them to the specific menus, modules and features to get all these different bits activated and your car tailored to the way you like it. So that's it, I'm back at base, we're powered down. It's actually a few days later, the car's magically washed itself, and I'm really happy with those coding changes I've made to my Boxster to just personalise it in a way that suits my preferences and what I want to get from my car. And as you've just heard, there's plenty of other things that you can do with PIWIS if you fancy making your car a little bit more individual. My recommendation, as I said before, is to find a friendly specialist who can help you with that. But if you do fancy having a deep dive, by all means go ahead, with the caveat of making sure you know what you're doing. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've had quite a lot of fun making it, actually really enjoyed diving into those menus and understanding what's possible to these amazing cars. Do stick around for some stuff coming up over the winter months, plenty more for me to do to the Boxster while it's in the garage. But in the meantime, as ever, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you for the next one.